where they don't have to run it, but if they did, again, pressure not on them nearly as much. Meanwhile, you look to Uprising, and we're in a serious position. We must win. What do we lock in? It's 3-3.
Something to notice here, Asking's not in the lineup. It's Ice.
Interesting.
That is something important to look at, because Asking, he has been, he's a great hit scan player. He has his moments on Zarya, but hasn't necessarily been like a crazy consistent at times. Also
the subject of many roster rumors here as of late, so you never really know. Multiple potential explanations, but Mayhem Academy, they see the 3-3.
Both teams went back and swapped. They both went to mid, saw each other's compositions, and swapped. And now Mayhem have gone back because they know Uprising has swapped, so they played the mind games, but now Uprising are going to swap again.
All this swapping, but where's the point?
First cap for Mayhem. This is going to be first cap for Mayhem because there's been 4 swaps.
I mean, this is really when the H key turns into its own minigame, but it works out well for Mayhem. They're getting in first control. We'll see what Uprising does as they move in, but the constant IQ chess match continues.
That is definitely some 9,000 IQ Galaxy Brain stuff right there happening. Uprising now going to be approaching from the high ground, looking to drop, look to pressure the point here. Both teams on the mirror matchup now. Uprising
going to be taking initiative. Hypnot diving straight in. Mayhem Academy backing out, and meanwhile, Maniton just able to get on Dino in the back while it's going on. 6-on-5 for Mayhem Academy. They get demeched, but not really too worse for the wear. Now Reinhardt advantage, and easy as that. Early pickoff onto the Zen sets things up really well for Mayhem Academy.
And that's something that shouldn't be possible. Like, it just should not be possible. When you're playing this 3-3 with the triple support with Brigitte in the lineup, it simply should not be possible for a D.Va to solo dive and get your Zenyatta because you have too much peel. So that's Maniton getting a good opening, but Uprising is not peeling properly for Dino.
Well, it certainly buys Mayhem Academy a lot of time, where, bear in mind, they've only had to win 1 full fight here, but because of the shenanigans at the beginning, where, by the way, Swimmer almost gets absolutely taken down. Maniton going in, looking to finish his plate. Swimmer.
He committed so hard for that, ZP.
He did. He took a lot of damage for it as well. Swimmer actually totally fine. Mayhem Academy going to be back out a little bit, but as they back out, shield pressure coming on the fact. His Earth Shatter in reserve. We're a little bit in the past right now. Not quite sure what's going on. We have to cast on sound.
We hear the sound. We definitely hear the audio cues, but it is very much frozen on our end. We do not see the feed, so I think some stuff is happening. There we go. Hypnot's 1 HP. He's down.
Hypnot's out of it, and Mayhem Academy, man advantage here. Shaq's moving back in. Fact got to save the Earth Shatter there. And now from Uprising, they really don't have a lot of time.
No, they don't. And I think something to note there is that Uprising engaged with that rally early from Klaus. They also tried to invest the Shatter, but they didn't get much out of it. Mayhem are still in a great spot because they only had to trade Trance.
Final opportunity here for the Uprising. Combo on deck. Fact getting a little bit cheeky with it. Diving straight on in. Goes for the Shatter. Deep in. Plenty of damage done. Hypnot out of the fight immediately. And Uprising not really able to mount much of anything there. It started out bad with the heroes changes and ended up quite worse.
Yeah, that was definitely, I mean, they played musical chairs with heroes there for a little bit and then gave up the first cap to Mayhem and didn't have any successful repushes. They just weren't able, I mean, they lost the fight right after that as well with that early pick from Dino. So really it's just the cumulative effects of just losing that time bank, of allowing the enemy team to control it so much harder than you.
And I mean, it's also, too, you think about how that went down, where one early pickoff leading into another, where, you see Dino get picked off early from Maniton, where, sure, good play by Maniton, but as you mentioned, probably shouldn't have happened. Just errors stacking up for Uprising that lead to a fairly non-competitive first round.
Yeah, definitely. It was very much one-sided there on the first. They could, I think you could put a lot of stock into just giving up that first cap so quickly for Uprising Academy. As they move out here, Mayhem, it looks like they might be running the Orisa, Torb, Hanzo, playing that spam comp.
We'll see if it works out. I mean, this is something that theoretically could actually work out here. Shaq's in the back, going to go for the bubble break. Takes down Iced immediately. Now, still in a rough spot, ends up falling himself, but given that Uprising is running a more traditional 3-3, losing the Zarya hurts them a lot more than Mayhem Academy losing the Hanzo.
Yeah, not having the Zarya means not only is a lot of your damage gone, but your engage, your ability to sustain, because how can you pressure the shield now without the bubble?
Uprising still looking for a way. Ep's gonna be down, but on the same note, Fact returning fire, dumps Brigitte into the pit. Getting pretty brawly here on the point. Mayhem Academy gonna move forward, stop Uprising from getting the early control, and we'll see if the setup ends up working. Punk gonna get demeched.
I mean, this should be a win for Mayhem Academy on the first point. They got so much. Losing Ice early meant that Uprising couldn't engage. They couldn't get that high energy. They had no way to pressure Fact's shield at all. You could not touch the Orisa shield. Mangachu was free to fire Shax. Despite going down, it was a good trade. And now they control the point, which is the best possible scenario for a composition like this, is winning the first fight.
Yeah, I mean, it gives a little bit more room here to the Torb and the Hanzo. Shax can disengage while looking for early pickoffs. It's a really good spot for Mayhem Academy to be in.
It is, and now they're going to be rotating from this pillar side, trying to get on the back line here for Mayhem Academy from this rotation, then pressure point. CFAC has those bongos up. Shax is going to have the Hanzo ult, a very good zoning ability.
So Uprising, they've rotated pretty heavily. They've eaten a lot of poke damage as they're mid-rotation. Now they're just starting to get picked off. They don't get a decisive dive. The arrows strike true, so does Mangachu in the back, and it just works way too well for Mayhem Academy. Uprising, they need to dive in earlier.
Well, they were looking to use the rotation to maybe catch the backline, which they didn't. However, they got the bongo out of fact. And the thing about Mayhem Academy, though, is they don't have a lot of great ults on the field. They really don't. So Uprising now, considering they're coming up on that double support ult, they'll have that opportunity to engage because they don't have to worry about combo.
51% to Mayhem Academy right now. Uprising looking for a win. This time going to be taking the alternate approach. Their left side, right side.
But look at this rotation. Yeah, look at this rotation from Mayhem.
They just go, all right, well, we're going to rotate the other side. We're going to inverse so we get the same setup as before. Barrier can be invested here by Uprising. Not enough to save Punk. He's going to have to self-destruct under heavy pressure. Ends up falling. Mangachu just layers in the lava on the other side. He's down immediately, and people just keep burning.
Oh
for
my
Uprising.
goodness.
They just burn.
This is definitely just falling directly into the lava blocks as he gets up the hammer kill on the ice at the end as well. You know, we've talked about it before, but a true silly hero specialist, that is what Mangachu is. He's unbelievably good at what I refer to as the silly heroes, which is, you know, the Torb, your May, things like that. Very strong defensive heroes. And the problem is Uprising burned both support ults and the Diva Bomb in that fight.
They used everything, and in the end, they just realized that the floor is lava. It's not the ideal situation for Uprising, least, but final opportunity to get open up here at the rally, moving back onto the point. Mangachu, plenty of room to work with here, just layering damage into the Winston. Hypnot, Primal Ranger, no, he needs to be even more angry, just immediately down. And the cleanup from Mayhem Academy, super decisive. Uprising, by contrast, looking very lost here. 100-0, 100-0. Mayhem Academy taking first match.
Wow. You know, I think that is the most... Is that the most Torb ult kills we've seen in a competitive game so far?
I can't think of anything
the new
that's been
Torb
more.
ult. I think that is an incredible amount of Torb ult kills that Mangachu got. So he really just playing the floor is lava there, and he won. Yeah. He won the floor is lava game.
In fairness there, he did get one kill almost for free, where it's like, the Baby Diva's about to leave mech. What if we make all the surrounding floor to the Baby Diva lava? What would happen then?
And realistically, though, when we get away from actually just how great Mangachu's Torb game is losing that first fight was just disastrous for when you're playing against that comp for Uprising. Getting isolated there means for Shaq saving his life was a good pick because you can't engage properly out the bubbles. And then from there on out, they tried to play a rotation game, but you can't play the rotation game versus the Orisa Torb Hanzo. You can't try to out-rotate him, especially when there's a Lucio on the field, because they will almost always just win the spam game. You have to look for the engage. You have to just set it up. And it's also part of the problems with Winston, because you don't have a Reinhardt to stand behind. You don't have that Reinhardt just walk into them with.
Yeah, I mean, also you think about the importance of the first fight there as well, is that when you're running something that's more of an anchor comp setup, which they were, it's pretty good at the initial fight. It's very good if you have control. It's not very good if you have to recontest. So if Mayhem had lost that first fight, they probably would have had to swap wholesale. They would have been pretty behind in ult economy. But because, as you say, they get the early pickoff onto Zarya to start with, it's a trade, it still works out way better for them, and it just put Uprising into a hole that, frankly, they could not get out of.
And then you still require, like, great play. You need your Hanzo and Torb, actually, to be getting a lot of value, which they were. In fact, if anything, I think that's one of the few teams right now in Contenders that will get consistent value out of that composition, because Shax is great, Mangachu is probably the best, you know, Torb player currently in Contenders, if not the entire Overwatch system. Now that Defran's gone.
I was going to say, Defran is
gone.
Now
that Defran is gone, Mangachu is probably the best player at Torb. He might have been even better before, even when Defran. He was always great at it.
The thing is, it was a discussion, right? It was that, who do you have as your Torb player? You got Mangachu or you have Defran? Well, Defran is off to full-time stream. No one can stop him now. And at the same note, you know, for Mangachu, that Torb highway, clear as day.
It's clear. It is very clear now for Mangachu. So you get a lot of value for Mayhem Academy running that composition and not losing the first fight, because you know you can get a lot of utility out of those two picks, out of the Torb, out of the Hanzo. So great play from them. Mayhem just not recognizing the weaknesses of their comp in contrast to the bunker and how you play against it. So have to make some adjustments.
Well, we'll see if they do that. Next map here, going to be Blizzard World that we roll on over to next. Mayhem Academy, of course, taking map number 1, and not, again, in a particularly close fashion. That was about as dominant as it gets, and it wasn't even a full 3-3 showing. They were able to do a little bit of magic with the Hanzo Torb. The Uprising Academy, meanwhile, they're pretty steadfast on sticking to this pretty standard 3-3 setup.
I think it's been their bread and butter so far, especially when Asking's not in the lineup again. You have Iced. That means that they're not going to be super comfortable, flexing on those hit scanning heroes, which is where Asking generally shined. Is where on the Widow, on the Kree. It's going to be Mayhem. They're going to be rolling out on what we call the Somber Goats. It's out, but Shaxx are just waiting in spawn. He sees the full 3-3 coming out, so going back to Zarya. So I think it's a smart move. Mayhem Academy, I think a team utilizes those swaps, those early round swaps very, very well.
Well, the early round swaps have worked out very well for them so far. I mean, it got them a full early point. No, okay, Fact under very heavy pressure. Mayhem, they can't back out quite in time. Uprising, they seize the moment, they get Fact down immediately, and off of that, this should be an early first point cap. Mayhem Academy's in a very tough spot here, and if they're able to bring it back, it says more about Uprising.
Got the D-Mech onto Punk, though, so an okay trade for Mayhem. If Fact is able to get back in time, they might decide to recontest.
Punk should be
No, it looks like
they're
just going to be holding choke.
Yeah, no, I think this is smart for Mayhem Academy. Too often teams will go for that late recontest with bad positioning, and then what do? You end up feeding ult. You don't bring it back a good amount of the time. This time, though, they just hold back, fight your fight on point B.
And look as they take high ground very fast here, Mayhem. They want to deny the high ground push for Uprising. They really want to take this early fight and control this extremely, really, really good spot.
Mayhem Academy, for now, on the high ground, biding their time. Uprising, focusing on the payload. And Mayhem Academy, they're just going to wait a little bit, let this rotate around. We're a bit frozen in time, so we're going off.
A consistent problem. The April Fools is on us.
Well, we just have to time skip our way through. Hypnot, though, holding on to the shatter.
Early trans.
It was very early, and okay, they used to get D-Mech on the Manitin. It's not entirely without merit, but Mayhem Academy get Transcend on their own. Go the other way, but it's right in the Hypnot Shatter, who easily deals Mayhem Academy, so Uprising getting some real momentum here.
Hypnot Shatter definitely saved the fight for Uprising right there, denying all the cleanup on the grab after that early transfer from Dino. And the only saving grace for Mayhem so far in the fight is that since Fact was able to counter Shatter, he forces the beat, so no support ults are up for Uprising.
Uprising in a good spot here. Graviton bomb setup in reserve. Mayhem Academy, not quite the same. Early rally gonna be coming out here. And moving forward, Mima look to Uprising. There's a Graviton. Punk setting up. Bomb. Up over to the sky. Mangachi already down. Bomb down. Mayhem Academy able to withstand the combo, but perhaps not much else. Ice there in the cleanup. It is 3, now 4 unanswered kills for Uprising. So they're gonna pretty easily bring this forward in the point B.
And Fact is going so deep during that grab fight means that there is no shield because he gets cleaned up for the post shatter, ensuring that Uprising Cat's second there. Now moving forward, moving the cart. They used a lot of their ult economy there for that fight, so Mayhem, they're not out of it for this next fight at all, especially with Eps having the trance to be able to trade. But they really need to get something. They need to have a fight win.
Yeah, they need anything to get stability here. 5 minutes is an absolutely fearsome time going for the Uprising. Manitin just going to let the bomb fly. Go, I'm going to throw this down Main Street. Let's see what happens. They're able to catch Iced off the rotation, and it's actually good enough. It creates enough chaos that Mayhem Academy is able to get forward here, get the fight win they're looking for, and they get to save the Transcendence to boot.
That's exactly what they needed to do, too. They needed to get some sort of value. They didn't want to necessarily have to pop trance and trade trances there. So having the bomb to split and isolate a target was really the perfect setup.
It works out well enough, and now you look towards Fact, who's about to have a shatter up. Getting a sneaky shatter here would be another way that Mayhem Academy could get their ult economy into a better spot. Fact was looking to step up a little bit to land it, ends up being a lot of damage, but Hypnot just isolated and down. Shaxx able to finish off. Fact under a lot of pressure, getting healed up all the same. Iced out of the fight, and Mayhem Academy, again, going to have a very resource-light fight.
And a little bit of miscommunication there for Uprising. They stay in the fight a little bit longer than they probably wanted to because Ice decides to reset almost immediately after Hypnot dies. And the rest of Uprising sat there on cart and we're doing a little bit of fighting. But when you're doing that, when you're down 2 players, you're just going to feed ult charge.
Yeah, and I mean, this has gotten Mayhem Academy definitely much more back into the game, but Uprising, a storm is brewing.
It's going to be almost a 5-ult v 5-ult fight coming in here, so a lot of it's just going to be based off this communication.
Heavy shield pressure coming in. Graviton out early. Uprising looking for the combo. Punk gonna connect right to the back. 2 down, make it 3. And from Uprising, it's exactly what they needed moving in here. And Mayhem Academy, they invested resources trying to turn that and absolutely did not.
But in return, they got 3 ults out of Uprising. They got the combo, they got the shatter. Uprising invested a lot to win this next fight. So now Mayhem Academy will be moving in. They'll be in a good position. The only problem was that Shaxx also used Grav and didn't get trance out. He used Grav and didn't get trance out.
Not the best fight there for Mayhem, where they've done a good job of getting themselves back up to that spot. Now a bit behind. Uprising can be taking the initiative. Rally used, moving forward. Mayhem Academy under a whole lot of pressure. Fact stepping up, moving forward. Shatter has to be on his mind. They're looking for the shield break. Instead, Fact will get juggled. Barrier though, come in time off the high ground. Fact gets booped up, ends up taking Zen on a ride back the other way. Hypnot already out of the fight. 6-on-5 now for Mayhem Academy. It was a very interesting setup.
And look at this pressure onto Fact. The peel so good from Mayhem. The fight, it isn't completely over, but it's gonna be cleaned up now. That was almost the back cap coming out from the swimmer. But that was a great play and great peel from Mayhem, and from Fact able to get that shatter off.
It was well-timed barrier coming in from Paintbrush as well, where Fact was under so much pressure that the beat, even a second later, that might have been the end of Fact.
It could have, and now something to remember though, is that Uprising are coming back on their combo here again. Mayhem going to be very close. Shaxx almost another grab here, so it's all going to be who can get it off first, who can deny.
Graviton v Graviton, iced. Looking for it on the Uprising side. Punk waiting for the follow-through. Mayhem taking the initiative, though, diving in the Uprising. Not giving them the ideal setup that they'd want to look for here. Hypnot down, the Graviton eaten on the other side. That is so big for Mayhem.
And that's really just what they need to do. That was a great setup for Mayhem. Using the rally to get the pressure first, denying Ice the ability to set up his own grab. And Manitin was watching Ice the entire time. He's watching that Zarya presence. He's looking how he moves forward. And could easily, I mean, you know, part of it can be lucky. Sometimes it can be a little bit just good timing, you know, lucky timing. But he was in the right position, was making the right moves and ate the grab.
All right, so remember, Uprising had about 5 minutes, actually over 5 minutes as they hit in here. Now they're down to their final minute 30. Walking forward, no Graviton to set things up here. It got gobbled up. Early shatter from Hypnot, not quite gonna connect. Mayhem counter-engaging, Transcendence up, deep diving Hypnot, they're looking for him. Gonna force out the Transcendence on the other side. Transcendence not enough to save Ice, who's already down. Fact though, a little bit deep, 5-on-5. Fight still very much in contest here. Uprising, completely drained. Manitin though says, back off a little bit. Self-destruct, gonna buy some room. Punk still has his in reserve.
And now Fact's gonna be back in the fight too. So this is still really good for Mayhem, considering that Mayhem's going to have the rally. They can be aggressive. They can look to set up their grab. They know that Uprising will not have either support ult just yet.
Uprising looking for their way back into the fight. Self-destruct still their main tool. Barrier about to be online. Hypnot under pressure now. Shield under fire. Hypnot himself under fire. Mayhem just putting in heavy Rhine pressure, forcing Uprising back a little bit. And for Hypnot now, do you take damage to your person? Do you take damage to your shield? The shield about to get cracked. Heavy pressure going in. And Hypnot says, I'm going to dive even deeper. Barrier wants to do just that. Earth Shatter in reserve. Immediately drops a Shatter. And so big. 5 knockdown for Mayhem.
That upright. It was actually Hypnot Shatter. Yep. It was actually Hypnot Shatter in return, setting up Punk's bomb. And that should be the fight. Unless the delay comes out for Paintbrush. Unless he's able to touch cart last second, get the best delay I've ever seen. This should be cap for Uprising. And it is.
Absolutely gigantic shatter by Hypnot there towards the very end.
Really
setting
huge.
It up.
That was a great, you know, you watch in the early approach, you were talking about ZP, how he was having to choose between his own health and the barrier health. And he chose to invest his barrier health to eat that early damage, so Swimmer's beat was more effective, and they could set up and actually just have a better situation for their combo, their shatter bomb.
Works out in the end. Now, I would say this much, is that if you're Mayhem, you're still fairly happy with how all this went down. I mean, you would have liked to have gotten the last 8 seconds off the clock. It is a hybrid map, and that is a win condition. But on the same note, think about how the first 2 points went. Mayhem got absolutely clobbered and got back most of the time on point C.
Yeah, almost able to completely drain the time bank for the last point. So it's a good save, a good stabilization, but they still have to have a great offense. That's very important here. They still need to have a good offense.
That is sometimes the tricky part here for teams, where you think, okay, we've brought things back a bit on the defense. We have a good foothold, but then you end up in a spot where you're like, but wait, we've given up point A and we've not capped it. What now?
You know, I also, this is a tangential to all of this anyways, but I really do like Hypnot's performance so far for Uprising Academy since he's been added. He is that replacement for both Fusions and Axiom. You know, he's like since both the main tanks have been moved up essentially onto the 2-way. I've liked Hypnots.
Yeah.
I think he's looked really solid so far. He's been a very, very good main tank player for Uprising.
I mean, this particularly, of course, being a meta where if you're anything but Sublime on main tank, your team very much feels the penalty. And look, I mean, credit where credit is due. Uprising Academy in their tenure in Contenders, again, going back to their Toronto days, just a name swap. They've been very good at identifying talent and getting them in the Overwatch League.
They have. They've been a pretty good job of moving up. Mayhem, though, they're going to be running this triple DPS setup. Actually, it's going to be the quad DPS with Eps on the Hanzo. Something we see that we've seen second generation run this a lot.
And they've already gotten a tick for free here. Uprising, they had to take refuge back in the building, looking for their time to zoom on out. Hypnot, though, just getting beaten. Shax finds Iced on the other side. It's 6-on-5 now for Mayhem Academy. And Uprising down near Zarya, they don't have a great ability to really roll back out. And it's a bit frozen on our end, but we know the story just from the sounds. And Shax with another 2.
That's going to be just the slow fight win for Mayhem, and a great fight win at that, considering they didn't have to invest any ults. They didn't have to play a super slow game. It was a super fast cap, and I imagine they're going to be swapping now, considering that Uprising are making their swaps, you know, getting the Winston, which is a much better pick here, rather than the Reinhardt.
So Mayhem Academy answering an early first point grab from Uprising the last round with an early attack of their own. They go high DPS. Now they're going to swap, so they don't quite get the snowball the way they would if it was 3-3 all the time, but they still get that early point A cap.
Yeah, getting the early point A and not, you know, they don't get to carry over much of their ult charge, but still very, very fast cap.
Uprising, meanwhile, reset up. Going to be looking to engage as Mayhem Academy comes around this corner.
And you see, did you see that Mayhem there? They try to do a fake rotation there, and they do manage to work it out. They force Uprising to the cart. They take the high ground. They pretty much swap position. You see Dino caught out, but gets the bubble.
Paintbrush dropped a little bit early, got chunked as a result. Mayhem Academy ends up being a lot of poke damage trying to re-solidify, but they do. They're in a good spot, offense and defense. They've completely swapped. And now
they're pushing. Where's Uprising going?
They gotta get back to the payload. Mayhem Academy's totally okay with this.
All right, now Uprising, they've taken the high ground again. They're gonna look for the drop. They had to recharge, get their shield health back up, get their overall health back up. Eps, so far forward, the trance.
Transcendence coming out here. Uprising Academy investing into this fight. Mayhem Academy under pressure. Rally gonna come out. Mayhem Academy still gonna try and turn this here. Hypnot though drops a shatter, knocks down 2, and that is going to seal an end to the fight. A rally thrown into the void by Mayhem towards the very end.
But if you're Mayhem, you're extremely happy. Not only because of the cart presence, but both support ults, actually all 3 support ults and the shadow was used for Uprising. It's only combo up. The problem though being, Paintbrush still doesn't have beat, which is one of your primary tools to mitigate the combo. So Mayhem are going to have to look for a much better engage, going to have to ensure that they keep the Zarya bubbles alive to stay in this fight.
It's definitely going to be a tougher fight, for sure, but hey, if the combo can strike here for Uprising, it's still going to be pretty good.
It's completely missed!
Yeah.
Oh my goodness!
When I say the combo can strike, I do not mean striking the kiosk there to the left. That is pretty much the worst case scenario for Uprising. And now Punk going to feel pressure to just hit the raw diva bomb of his dreams. Mayhem Academy have to be feeling very good about this as they look to re-engage.
Someone get the backyard baseball stats for Ice right there after that whiff.
Transcendence moving in, and that's all they've invested here so far. They just rolled the Uprising, 2 immediately falling from that. And this should be all Mayhem Academy needs. Uprising gonna get thrown back, but to Uprising's credit, they've still had a better point B defense than Mayhem had just a round to go.
They have so far, but it's not just about your defense on the first 2 points. It's like, can they put up as good a defense as they do on the last? Because that's where the majority of the time, more than likely, especially as you look at the ult bank for Mayhem versus Uprising, that's where the majority of the time is going to be spent.
Yeah. And, I mean, normally it's pretty rare to have a team hold for that long, so it's unrealistic. But over here, Graviton going to be thrown out. Again, we have to cast off someone to get the point.
They grab them off point, and they can't contest.
Yeah,
they're still committing fights. They're still committing ults, so Uprising committing ults to this fight for some reason after the point's been capped. The cart's not going to be moving during this time anyways.
Questionable for Uprising there, where the Graviton keeps them off the payload from Mayhem. I mean, it's a smart heads-up play, and then Uprising, they still throw ults into the fight anyways.
And they're going to catch out Dino, who's so far forward. They were trying to get him out of main. You see Swimmer coming back for them. But so they've staggered themselves. They've used ults on a fight where the cart wasn't moving anyways. And then look at Mayhem Academy's ult bank. What did they accomplish with that fight? Not very much.
Mayhem Academy, they're in a great spot now. 3.5 minutes left. Again, not quite as much as Uprising had for their own point C attack, but still means Mayhem Academy could set a much quicker time if their point C is better.
Definitely, especially when if they tempo push a couple of these times where they get some ults out or just have a really good exchange, because there's really only 2 fights.
Well, Uprising, they're going to be the aggressors here. They move in immediately. They force out the rally, but they lose Klaus. They lose Klaus before the barrier even connects. So the barrier goes in, but there's only 5 up to receive the tunes. Mayhem Academy 6 on 5 in a good spot. Going to be getting the DMAC. And Uprising right now, yeah, you get 1 boop from Swimmer, but not a whole lot else.
Uprising have to be feeling so good about that engagement. Double support ult used again from Uprising Academy. Combos up for Mayhem, and all they had to invest was the Shatter Rally.
Yeah, Mayhem's feeling very good about that. And now for Uprising, I mean, there's not a lot of great victory conditions here. Yeah, you have the grab from Mayhem Academy. So many ways of dealing with it. Heading into what could be the final fight. Shaxx holding onto the grab here in the back. Early barrier getting used by Mayhem Academy. They use it to isolate out Hypnot. Here comes Graviton by Ice, but guess what? Transcendence is there. It's a party. Everyone's praying. No one's actually falling. Self-destruct. Moving on in from Manitin. That's going to be the chair on top. Mayhem Academy going to be setting a much quicker time here.
Yeah, much, much faster time. And it's all because of that fight on last, right? The fight previous to last, where Uprising decides to commit ults to a lost fight when the cart isn't moving after for seemingly no reason. And then the fight previous to that, when you see the engagement with Manitin got that early pickoff onto Klaus, he was actually hiding around the pillar closer to the Mega on the low ground of last, and zooms around, hearing the call that Klaus is low, and picks him off before Swimmer's able to beat. They didn't even see him.
It's not the first time I've seen Manitin do that either. You think back even the times where it hasn't been effective, where I think the most obvious example going back to Nepal, right, where Swimmer just gets chunked by, presumably a Zenyatta or something. We didn't see the initial source of damage, but he gets low. And what do we see? Manitin just out of nowhere goes on in to finish it. So you have to imagine what's going on Mayhem comms right now is that anytime someone says the classic, so-and-so hero won, Manitin's just keying in on that and zooming in from the void to just take them out.
And it's a great strategy overall. I mean, D.Va's a perfect hero to chase down low HP heroes. But something to be noted, and it's sort of the same thing that we saw previously in the last map, is that Manitin should not be able to do that, ever, realistically, especially in an engagement fight, not in the middle of a fight breaking down, because you have so much peel available in the 3-3 that D.Va is not an assassin hero like she is in Dive.
Well, so far, Mayhem Academy, they've been testing the limits, and Uprising, they've been found a little bit wanting in that regard. But now we go into extra rounds here. Sombra up here from Shaxx again, just scouting, going to be going back to the Zarya, where I like the foresight here from Mayhem Academy to at least always be looking for the extra info for extra swaps if need be.
Now Shaxx going to be back on the point. They do give up a lot of early point presence, though, as you see Hypnot move onto the point very aggressively. And
what happened last time is that Fact just got bopped very early on. Mayhem Academy going to be a little bit further back this time. Our feed, a little bit back and forth here, but we see Mayhem Academy back into it as it is restored. The poke battle was going the way of Uprising for all, but now Mayhem Academy getting back into it a bit. Fact in a decent spot, shield a little bit restored, health certainly restored. And Mayhem Academy now diving a little bit farther out, using the boops not to isolate people, just to make a little bit of room.
And the rallies are going to be equal on both sides here. There's going to be no really early engaged presence on the Hypnot is too far forward, which he isn't. It's going to be Klaus having the counter rally very soon.
Well, the rally is up a little bit earlier. Hypnot under pressure, though, dropping the Shatter. Knocks down 2. Transcends out from Uprising, but it's not in time to save Hypnot. Hypnot got low for the Shatter. He was hoping the Transcend to save them. Instead, it doesn't happen. Mayhem Academy still at the full 6. Coming back the other way. Transcendence in the bank. Transcendence out in the field. They're going to use it to pressure out Uprising and likely secure the point as Shaxx goes wild in the back.
And with Ice going down, it gave them a free chance, gave Eps a free chance to pop that early Transcendence. Follow up with Fact. That's going to be the cleanup. Well played for Mayhem. They just won the poke war. Hypnot also got a little too aggressive for that Shatter. He was expecting that he'd be able to get more or be able to kept up, but he wasn't. And then really from there, just snowballed on the fact that Mayhem just had the pick advantage. It could play more aggressive.
We think back to the last broadcast we had. We were talking about hit songs and the games of competitive Overwatch, and we saw the classic there of I transcended, but my Rhine is already dead for Hypnot, whereas it was really close, but just not quite in nick of time.
No, definitely not. Not fast enough. So it's going to be the just cleanup frags right now, or not cleanup frags. What am I saying? I hear a loud truck outside your apartment.
Is that a loud truck or is that a motorcycle?
That is definitely a truck. Have you heard a motorcycle before?
I mean, I've heard motorcycles with really bad mufflers. Why are you giving me that? You're giving me the look as if you're just like, this man has clearly not heard a motorcycle.
I'm struggling to believe you have after the sound I just heard.
That was a very inquisitive look of just, what is wrong with this person? Does he not know his motor vehicles? It's like, well, look, you know what? I have lived in areas where you don't always have to use a motor vehicle to get around, even though it's still mostly the case. But look, getting into it, Mayhem Academy, 13 seconds. till the gates are open, and they don't have to do much with this 3 minutes.
No, they know their win condition. I mean, Uprising also they do have one blessing. They got 39% on the point, so they do have a win condition. They didn't get held full, so they got ticks, so they can theoretically still win this map, but it has to be a really, really good hold.
Well, Uprising deciding that they're going to move out with the Ash Junkrat, so it's certainly a lot of damage, a lot of burst potential. The problem is that if their front line gets hurt a bit, or even Mayhem Academy is just able to get forward and get around, it's going to be hard for Uprising to reestablish.
And you see some of these picks, the swaps happening in Mayhem as they're sitting in spawn, making these changes. They have the double dive tank, so they can not only contest high ground, but contest point. But more importantly, they'll probably have Mangachu going to point, forcing the rotation from Uprising, and then looking for those picks for Shaxx and their double tanks.
Also, for a game that is now a one-fight margin, EMP in and of itself is an outrageous win condition. So Mayhem Academy has a lot of different ways that they end up taking this point. Uprising is in a very tough spot.
And they've already forced the rotation for Uprising. You see now the point, they're moving, Mayhem's just closing in. Slowly but surely trying to close the circle here. Trying to catch anyone they can as Shaxx gets Hypnot, which is a huge pick.
Oh, and the Orisa ends up getting taken down, though. They can res immediately, and they do, but the pressure is still there. Shaxx piles on, gets iced. Not going to be resing that one. In fact, diving in onto the point. Mangachu catches Swimmer on the flip side, and this one already over. Mayhem Academy taking map number 2.
And a pretty convincing fashion at that.
Yeah.
I think that it was, it looked a little rough for them on their first defense. Or on their only defense, I guess.
Yeah.
But they brought it back, they stabilized, and their offense was clean. And realistically, I don't think it would have been nearly as close if it wasn't for Uprising making a lot of unforced errors.
Yeah,
that defense for Uprising, where they committed those ults after the point already being capped on second, and allowing people to lose people early and double supporting and still not able to save Klaus, it's huge.
Yeah, I mean, what we've seen here is 2 things, right? Is that Uprising, when playing well, they looked pretty good. They had moments in this game, particularly you think to their attack, where point A and point B, they were playing out of their minds and at the level that you would expect a team to be playing at this level. But self-mistakes ending up coming back to haunt them, and Mayhem, by comparison, not making those mistakes anywhere near as frequently, and in the end, consistency of gameplay wins out.
Yeah, definitely. Being consistent is probably one of the strongest things you can do. It's better. It's really overall better than just being fantastic at being the best player, because 99% of the time, especially when you're at the the mid-range to upper level, where a lot of the where Mayhem Academy sort of sits right now, it's better to be consistent than it is to be the best players overall. It's way better to be consistent. It's sort of like the fountain of youth of esports is consistency, and it's when you can consistently not make mistakes, you're gonna win more often than not.
Well, particularly in this meta, too, or 3-3, I mean, it's pretty much exactly what it's decided on. You don't quite have the crazy peaks and pop-up moments that you've seen in other metas to carry a player that sometimes has big lows. But, guys, that is our half. Still got another half of Overwatch left to go here. Uprising, still have the potential of turning this thing around. But will they be able to do it? We'll find out after the break.